What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Blade, and we're back with some more Alex Bale SpongeBob theories. I know I've been away for like 3 days, but you know your boy's back, and we're ready to go ham. We have a lot of theories we gotta cover, but you guys have still been supporting the channel. Bare subscribers, we're at 369. Can we get 370 after this video? Maybe. You guys are still watching my videos. I love y'all. I appreciate that. Y'all are liking the videos, subbing, watching. And yeah, you guys are W viewers, and I appreciate that. So without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe for more reaction content, and join the Discord, always in the link in the description. And road to 1K subs, but at 400 subs, I will go live. And we're gonna react to the High School Musical theory together as one big YouTube family. Alright, let's start this Mrs. Puff's theory.
This is not Mrs. Puff. You may think she's just SpongeBob's boating teacher, but you'd be very, very wrong. For years, she's been running from her dark and mysterious past, but it's finally caught up to her. And behind it all is a mastermind who's been secretly controlling her life and psychologically torturing her. If you guys thought my last two theories were mind-blowing, get ready for my biggest conspiracy yet. This is the Mrs. Puff theory. Now, a lot of people have been asking, Alex, how do you come up with these crazy conspiracy theories? Well, I always start these theories by looking for the moments in the show that seem to be implying more than they're letting on. Like I've said before, SpongeBob is a weird show with lots of abstract humor, but I can usually understand the intent the writers had behind a weird joke. But then there's stuff like this.
I hope I still remember how to do this. Yeah.
And it's so confusing and weird that it feels like the writers are trying to imply something beyond just weirdness for the sake of comedy. And nowhere in the show is there more of these moments than with Mrs. Puff. And once I started looking into it, it led me down the deepest rabbit hole I've ever seen from this show. So, let's begin.
Mrs. Puff's dark past.
Mrs. Puff is a boating school teacher in Bikini Bottom. She's passed all of her students except for one, SpongeBob SquarePants. He's taken her driver's test hundreds of times, and he always ends up failing it and causing destruction and chaos that usually ends up with Mrs. Puff going to jail, despite it not really being her fault. We also know that she was once married, but her husband was killed by fishermen.
That's my driving teacher, Mrs. Puff.
Mrs. Puff? Oh, she's married.
Oh no, Mr. Krabs, she's single.
Then what happened to Mr. Puff?
She doesn't like to talk about it.
Throughout the show, there are moments
Yo, rest in peace, Mr. Puff.
like this that seem to be hinting at her having a dark, mysterious past. And in Season 2, Episode 10, No Free Rides, we get the biggest clue about who Mrs. Puff really is. After SpongeBob fails the driving test yet again, Mrs. Puff has just had it with him and ends up just giving up and giving him his license even though he never really passed. She quickly realizes that this is a horrible idea and he'll probably end up destroying the entire town.
So much destruction. This reporter asks, why? Local consensus places the blame on this negligent, selfish driving instructor who...
Remember this clip, because it's going to be very important later on. And then she says this insanely revealing line.
What have I done? Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. I'll have to move to a new city, start a new boating school with a new name. No, not again.
What do you mean, not again?
No, not again. Come on, it's like they're just begging someone to make a theory about this. So we now know Mrs. Puff was originally from a different town, she used to own a different boating school, and Mrs. Puff isn't even her real name. There's something in her past that she ran away from. Now, there's been some debate over whether she's actually referring to a new name for herself or for her boating school, but I do think she's talking about her own name, because if she's trying to run away from something in her past, she wouldn't start a new boating school with her real name in the title. Now, when she says again, I don't think she's just referring to starting a new life.
Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. Not again.
I think at her previous boating school, she had a terrible student just like SpongeBob who she prematurely gave a license to, and it led to something so terrible happening that she had to run away and start a whole new life. In Season 3, Episode 5, Doing Time, we get a flashback to when she first opened up the school.
Where did I go wrong? With the opening of my new boating school, I pledge that as long as a student is willing to learn, I shall never give up.
Hi, I'm SpongeBob SquarePants.
With the opening of this new boating school, let's keep in mind that this is not her first boating school. Maybe the whole reason she's making this pledge now at her second school is because she gave up on a student at her previous school, and that led to her having to run away and start a new life. She's pledging to never make the same mistake again. Now let's skip ahead to one of the newer episodes. Season 12, Episode 21, Lighthouse Louie, where Mrs. Puff has SpongeBob organize all the stuff she keeps in the school's lighthouse. There's lots of interesting things hidden in the background, but the first thing that caught my eye was this file labeled Mrs. Puff. It makes sense for a teacher to have files on all their students, but why would she have a file about herself? But let's remember, she's not Mrs. Puff. That's a fake identity she created, and I'm willing to bet all of her fake identification documents are in this file. Hey, Alex from the future here. This is actually the file from Mrs. Puff You're Fired that shows all the time she's failed to pass SpongeBob, but let's be honest, this was the least impressive evidence in this lighthouse, so I think it's fine. But that's
Okay, fair enough.
not the only hint about Mrs. Puff's past in this lighthouse. There is something in here that directly confirms all of this. As SpongeBob swallows all of Mrs. Puff's junk, we see something very interesting for only a few frames. Deranged boat teacher makes getaway.
Deranged boat teacher makes getaway. October 21st. Distracts authorities with balloon animals.
10 seasons later, and the creators are still hiding stuff about Mrs. Puff fleeing her old life. It might not look like it at first, but we actually get a ton of new information from this newspaper. This is from the New Kelp Post, which tells us Mrs. Puff originally lived in New Kelp City. Then there's a caption that reads, distracts authorities with balloon animals. And do you remember that clip from the beginning?
I hope I still remember how to do this. Yeah.
So whenever Mrs. Puff makes a getaway or commits a crime, she leaves behind a balloon animal to distract the police. I'm telling you guys, these writers don't just do stuff randomly, they have reasons for everything. Okay, so before we move on, let me talk about this newspaper. This was by far the most direct, unambiguous piece of
Not the Death Note music.
evidence the show has ever given us for a theory, and I have never found anything else like it in the entire show. It's the white whale of SpongeBob theory evidence. But would you believe me if I told you that this newspaper actually has more hidden information inside of it that I missed? If we look at the storyboard for this episode, we can see the newspaper originally had even more information about Mrs. Puff.
Oh, her real name, Bobby? Bobby Blowfish?
Obviously the big one, we now finally know Mrs. Puff's real name, Bobby Blowfish. Originally, we only had the date the newspaper was published, but now we have the year. This is the same
97.
year that the SpongeBob pilot came out. And finally, we now know how Mrs. Puff escaped the cops chasing her. In the bottom picture, we see her heading towards a cliff with a sign that says Rock Bottom, a place that only the most skilled drivers could navigate. How is there still so much hidden lore in this newspaper? And the most damning piece of evidence from this newspaper is actually the picture of Mrs. Puff. Kind of a strange photo, right? We have seen this exact same photo of her before. In the episode No Free Rides, when she imagines what would happen if SpongeBob got his license.
Local consensus places the blame on this negligent, selfish driving instructor.
Oh, it's the mug shot! Oh, you're right!
Yo, why did this guy... Yo, Los Polos? Los Polos TV? Even he reacts to this?
Holy fuck, bro! This isn't a conspiracy! This is real!
This means that this isn't just her imagination of what might happen. This is also her remembering what happened when she lived in New Kelp City and prematurely gave one of her students a license. And I'm willing to bet that the fish reporting the news is the exact same one who reported about her in New Kelp City. Let me explain. We know from the episode Whatever Happened to SpongeBob that reporters from the Bikini Bottom News can also work for the New Kelp City News. But the real reason I think this is because of his hair. In the entire
Because he's old. His old-fashioned hairstyle.
show, we have never seen this fish reporter with hair before. Why would the creators go out of their way to add that detail? Because Mrs. Puff isn't imagining him as he looks now. She's remembering him from years ago when he used to have hair, when he reported about her in New Kelp City. But how does he have hair if he's a robot? Alright, listen, when you make 8 crazy different theories, sometimes they're not all gonna perfectly line up, okay? What are you gonna do? Mrs. Puff has been running from her past ever since, and is now forced to relive her experience with an unteachable student through SpongeBob. But reliving this trauma has pushed her to the point of complete insanity. And trust me when I say that you have no idea how delusional she actually is.
The insanity of Mrs. Puff.
Another running gag throughout the series is Mrs. Puff's occasional nervous breakdowns or moments of insanity because of SpongeBob, and they get more severe as the show continues. At first she did care for SpongeBob, but in the newer episodes she literally tries to kill SpongeBob just to get him out of her life. Even SpongeBob just walking up to her gives her severe PTSD.
Hi, Mrs. Puff.
Hit the brakes! SpongeBob! Watch the tree! Laugh!
Wait, Mrs. Puff. We're not driving.
But these mostly seem like just one-off moments, and for the most part Mrs. Puff is still a functioning member of society, right? I'm going to show you that she's actually much more insane and delusional than you may think. And some of the episodes she's in take place entirely in her own head. If we're talking about how insane Mrs. Puff is, there is no better place to start than the episode Doing Time. Once again, SpongeBob fails the boating test and causes destruction and chaos, which leads to Mrs. Puff going to jail. SpongeBob keeps breaking into jail to try and bust her out, but Mrs. Puff actually prefers being in jail over teaching him. We actually get another interesting line about Mrs. Puff's past in this episode.
Okay, you can do this, Puff. You can get through this without losing your sanity. Oh, that's a road we don't want to go down again.
So we know that
She's been around the block. She's been behind bars before.
Mrs. Puff has lost her sanity in the past, probably from her previous terrible student. But it seems like she's recovered since then, except in this episode she has a complete mental breakdown. SpongeBob keeps appearing in impossible places until she gets thrown into solitary confinement, where each wall of the room transforms into a giant SpongeBob face. And then the episode ends in a way that's so weird and confusing that it rivals the infamous gorilla episode ending. As Mrs. Puff freaks out, she's suddenly transported back into the beginning of the episode when SpongeBob was taking the test. Except this time, SpongeBob gets arrested instead of her.
Help! Help! No! This is not a good time! No!
I can't believe it. It was all a dream. I'm not going to jail.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time.
Oh! There it is. Case closed.
Forget it.
So what's really going on in this episode? Was the ending all in her head? Is Mrs. Puff just caught in an endless loop? I think this entire episode is inside of Mrs. Puff's head, and she's actually on the outside the whole time, but she's been imagining herself inside of prison. I can explain. Listen closely to what the police officer tells Mrs. Puff.
I'm not going to jail.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time. And then revealing she's still in a prison uniform despite being on the outside. So this scene is obviously inside of her head, which means everything we see is symbolic. And if we can understand the symbolism of it, we can understand what's really going on with Mrs. Puff. Notice how she's suddenly wearing a black and white striped prison uniform, even though the entire episode she's been wearing this orange jumpsuit. Why would the creators go to the extra effort to draw a whole new prison uniform for her? Well, we've seen her wear this black and white prison uniform before, the very first time she went to prison back in Season 1, Episode 7, Hall Monitor. So when the police officer says, "You've already done your time," he's referring to the first time she went to jail. But why is she still wearing that uniform outside of prison? Well, she may have gotten out of jail, but she was by no means free. Having to teach SpongeBob is a prison in itself, and she manifests that by believing she's in jail and wearing a prison uniform despite being on the outside. This entire episode, every time SpongeBob magically appears, is all inside of her head. She is completely delusional, and hints that she's experiencing these hallucinations don't stop there. Just 6 episodes later, she goes to a house party SpongeBob throws, and while everyone is talking and having a good time, in the background we see she's literally sitting by herself talking to an ice sculpture of SpongeBob. You can't tell me this isn't intentional. I mean, look at this.
Bruh, she's friggin' schizophrenic.
Herself.
No fucking way! You're lying. You're lying. You're lying. That is insane. That is actually insane.
Now, back in the episode No Free Rides, there is a very strange picture inside of Mrs. Puff's home. It's a picture of Mrs. Puff inside of a picture of Mrs. Puff inside of a picture of Mrs. Puff.
Infinite Tsukuyomi, bro. This is some Genjutsu type beat.
Creating an infinite loop. This is something that has confused SpongeBob fans for years. But like everything in the show, there is a reason for it being there. One of the SpongeBob storyboard artists actually called it the biggest mystery in the entire show. If you think about it, this is just like the end of Doing Time, where she's stuck in an infinite loop of SpongeBob failing the driving test. Because it's all symbolic of what her life is, just an endless cycle of SpongeBob taking the test and failing, and no matter what she does to try and escape, she always ends up back in the same place at the end of the episode. So this picture is another symbolic manifestation of what she's feeling. We even see another one of these pictures all the way in Season 9,
Another one?
Episode 5, Bumper to Bumper. And hey, we got another one in Season 13, Potato Puff. This is
Another one?
something that the show is consistently alluding to. Mrs. Puff is an unreliable narrator, and anything we see with her could potentially all be inside of her own head. In fact, I believe I found another episode that takes place inside of her head. In Season 9, Episode 17, SpongeBob Long Pants, SpongeBob goes to a different boating instructor and actually gets his license. But as soon as he does, we briefly cut to Mrs. Puff waking up.
You pass.
I finally got my driver's license!
Lock your doors, bar your windows, it's the end of the world!
Now, this seems like it's probably just a throwaway gag where Mrs. Puff somehow senses that SpongeBob got his license, and it causes her to wake up and freak out. You know, it's a good bit, it's funny, but I have a question. If the joke is that she's supposed to be waking up at the exact time SpongeBob gets his license, how come she wakes up at night when SpongeBob clearly gets his license during the day?
Oh, snap.
Because this entire episode actually takes place inside of Mrs. Puff's head. And this is the only part of the episode in the real world.
I don't know what that was all about, but I'm glad it's over.
Originally, I paused the theory here to explain how we're able to see her hallucinations, even though I claim the show is supposed to be a nature documentary in my television theory. But if everything's supposed to be from a camera, then how are we seeing things from inside Mrs. Puff's head? In fact, how do we see dreams and flashbacks and thought bubbles? But I already explained that in my new imagination mini theory, so definitely check that one out if you missed it. It adds a whole new layer to why Mrs. Puff is hallucinating so much. Back to the theory, we know that her insanity has caused her to live a life of delusion, but if you remember back to the Lighthouse episode, she's also become an extreme hoarder, and looking at her collection of junk is like a look directly into her mind. So there's gotta be something we can learn about her from it. There's a picture of her boyfriend, Mr. Krabs, the hall monitor belt she gives her students, the mean drawings her students make her, SpongeBob's diary, a boating safety helmet. Wait, SpongeBob's diary?
How did she get that?
Why does she have SpongeBob's diary? The last time we saw that, it was safely put away in SpongeBob's library. What's it doing in her lighthouse? And why does she have Squidward's painting?
Oh, snap.
And a table from the Krusty Krab, and SpongeBob's bike, and Squidward's teddy bear, and the hair curlers Mr. Krabs had? Okay, so technically those were originally Mrs. Puff's hair curlers.
Even Mrs. Puff's hair curlers?
That one was a gift.
But it's implied that Mr. Krabs stole them from her, so her having them now probably means she stole them back. It still works for the point I'm trying to make. And that statue of Squidward, and that diamond ring, and that crown, and that bucket of radioactive waste, and that jellyfish sign? Oh my god. Mrs. Puff is a kleptomaniac. Mrs. Puff has been stealing from everyone in Bikini Bottom. I can even prove that her pet snail from season 3 episode 19 was stolen.
My snail is up a tree. I've had her since I was a little girl.
You've had that snail since you've been a little girl, huh? Then how come that is the exact same snail Squidward had 4 episodes ago in the Great Snail Race?
I wouldn't let Snelly here play with that mongrel mutt. She's a purebred. See, she even has her own papers.
He even has her paperwork. Mrs. Puff clearly stole the snail from Squidward. But why the hell
She stole that shit.
would Mrs. Puff steal all this other junk? What possible use could she have for any of it? We could find the answer to that question by looking at this green hat and this purple jacket. These were gifts Mr. Krabs bought her on their first date, but she ended up feeling uncomfortable receiving them and gave them back to him.
I'm afraid I just don't feel comfortable accepting all these gifts.
Except apparently she's not too uncomfortable to steal them back afterwards. So clearly Mrs. Puff isn't stealing this stuff because she wants to use it. She just steals for the thrill of it. Maybe stealing things is her way of coping with the insanity of her everyday life. And remember, this isn't the first time she's gone insane.
You can get through this without losing your sanity. Oh, that's a road we don't want to go down again.
In fact, I have reason to believe that she started stealing things way back whenever she first went insane.
I hope I still remember how to do this.
I don't think she's just talking about remembering how to make balloon animals. She's probably also referring to remembering how to steal a boat. And if that's not enough for you, in a SpongeBob comic book, she actually admits that she used to rob banks and she wears the exact same ski mask.
I didn't even know there was a SpongeBob comic book.
Ooh, and we can see the ski mask in the newspaper storyboard. That's cool. Mrs. Puff lives a completely delusional and miserable life, all because she has to teach SpongeBob how to drive. It's led her to steal from the people she cares about and completely disassociate from reality. But that begs a very important question. If SpongeBob is causing her life to be so miserable, then why does she even keep teaching him? After all the destruction and pain he's caused, she'd totally be justified to expel him, right? I mean, she will literally try and kill him so she doesn't have to teach him, but for some reason,
To be fair, she was pushed to her breaking point in this episode. She usually doesn't want to harm him.
she can't just expel him. It's almost like there's someone forcing her to teach SpongeBob.
The mastermind.
Back to the episode No Free Rides. After prematurely giving SpongeBob a license, she steals his boatmobile so he can't hurt anyone. In the end, this causes her to get arrested and go to jail, but then SpongeBob tells her this.
And besides, the warden says she'll let you go early if you do her a favor.
What's that?
Free driving lessons!
She'll get to leave prison early if she gives free driving lessons. That seems like an oddly specific requirement. And that's not the only time this gets mentioned either. In Season 9, Episode 5, Bumper to Bumper, we get this scene.
If only SpongeBob could pass his boating test, he'd be out of my life once and for all. Unfortunately, I keep getting reminded of the consequences if I get too angry with the little nuisance.
Consequences. Are you telling
She's monitored? Got the ankle monitor?
me that if she refuses to teach SpongeBob specifically, she'll be violating her parole and get sent back to jail? Why does the prison even care if Mrs. Puff teaches SpongeBob? Is it just part of some weird community service? But things start to get really suspicious at the end of Season 7, Episode 5, Summer Job. Once again, Mrs. Puff ends up in jail, but this time she's forced to go to a prison boating school.
Oh, wow! A driver's education class!
Good day, class!
I must be having a nightmare! What's he doing here?
Dear Mrs. Puff, I'm following in your footsteps and got a job as a driver's ed teacher for the summer.
Who in their right mind would hire SpongeBob to do this after he's literally destroyed the city countless times while driving? Is this just another one of Mrs. Puff's delusions? Or is the prison intentionally forcing her to be around SpongeBob just to torture her? I mean, look at the way the guard forces her to sit there and listen to him.
Get me out of here!
And look at that evil smile he has as he watches.
She's like, yeah, hey, you stayed here and you gonna suffer. Listening to SpongeBob teach you how to drive, even though he's trash at driving and has no license.
endure this torture, there is something very strange going on with this prison. Then, in Season 10, Episode 8, The Getaway, Mrs. Puff meets a criminal named Dorsal Dan and starts to get romantic feelings for him. This is also while she's still dating Mr. Krabs. Shame on you, Mrs. Puff. At the end of the episode, they both
She's from the streets.
accidentally land in prison, and the warden puts him in solitary confinement.
Warden, I found this one pulling up outside the prison.
Dorsal Dan, a notorious getaway driver. Toss him in the clink.
I'll wait for you, my little tenderfoot.
She says tenderfoot here, by the way, because he was really good at driving. A lot of people thought she said something else.
Yo, low-key, it sounds like that.
I'll wait for you, my little tenderfoot.
Yo, you can hear it, kind of.
She says tenderfoot here, by the way, because he was really good at driving. A lot of people thought she said something else. In or out of jail, this prison will stop at nothing to make sure she is alone and miserable. But why? Who's behind all of this? Why would anyone care this much about torturing Mrs. Puff? Who's the mastermind pulling the strings? Well, maybe it has something to do with her old life in New Kelp City. Maybe she crossed someone and they've been plotting their revenge ever since. But I've looked in every single frame of New Kelp City, and there is nothing connecting it back to the prison. I've looked literally everywhere, and there's not a single person from the city that has anything to do with Mrs. Puff. Well, I mean, maybe except for the literal warden of the prison she's being kept in!
Ain't no way. But that guy looks taller.
He may be hiding slightly off screen, but that is clearly the same warden of the Bikini Bottom prison. And this isn't some random background character that the show reuses all the time. He is a very distinct character. You can call me out on the Squilliam video all you want, but not this time. I've got some new thoughts on this mastermind warden theory, but I'll save them for the next mini theory. But wait a second. If the warden was originally from New Kelp City, then he'd probably know about Mrs. Puff's dark past and her true identity. So why hasn't he exposed her? He's just kept quiet about the fact that one of his inmates is living a completely false identity. She'd probably even get more prison time when they find out who she really is, so why hasn't he said anything? This is where things get very interesting. So, we know Mrs. Puff prematurely gave a student at her original boating school a license, and that led to them causing chaos and destruction. Maybe this student accidentally did something terrible to the warden, and he's blamed Mrs. Puff ever since. Whatever happened was so terrible that it caused him to move to Bikini Bottom and get a job as the warden of the town's prison. And to his surprise, he finds out that one of his inmates is actually the person he blamed for that terrible thing happening. This works out perfectly for him. He can finally get his revenge on Mrs. Puff by making her life miserable. All he has to do is reveal her dark secret, and she'll be stuck in jail for much longer. Except for one small issue with his plan. Mrs. Puff actually likes being in prison.
One day down, 2,528 to go. Oh, that's just shy of 4 years without SpongeBob. I'm going to enjoy this.
So, he comes up with a new plan. Keep Mrs. Puff secret and let her out of prison early, but only under the condition that she has to teach SpongeBob. He's literally turning her normal life into a prison. And he makes sure going back to prison to avoid SpongeBob isn't even an option for her anymore, because he'll make sure that SpongeBob is always in there with her. And he's not gonna let her escape and start a new life like she did in New Kelp City. He makes sure to give her an ankle bracelet that doesn't let her leave Bikini Bottom.
I can't even leave town without violating my parole.
He is the mastermind who's been controlling everything this entire time. Alright, gonna interrupt here. The warden that told Mrs. Puff she could leave prison if she gave free driving lessons was actually referred to as a female.
And besides, the warden says she'll let you go early if you do her a favor.
It's a female?
So that's my bad. That definitely wasn't the same warden. It doesn't ruin my theory, but like I said, I've got some new ideas for this part that I'll talk about later. But guess what? His insidious plan doesn't even end there. This is not the first time we've seen the warden character. We first see him in Season 4, Episode 2, Crabs vs. Plankton. In this episode, Plankton slips on some water in the Krusty Krab and decides to sue Mr. Krabs for everything he owns. And then guess who shows up out of nowhere and offers to be Mr. Krabs' lawyer?
The
What I
warden.
really need is a good lawyer.
Whoa, did somebody say lawyer? Richard A. Bottomfeeder, attorney at law. I couldn't help but notice that despicable display.
Richard A. Bottomfeeder, the warden of the Bikini Bottom prison, is also apparently a lawyer? That's kind of strange. Those both sound like major careers. You usually wouldn't imagine someone being both. Then he says he'll be Mr. Krabs' lawyer completely free of charge.
So, how much is this gonna cost me?
Actually, I won't charge a dime unless we win.
Well, that's awfully generous of you, Richard. Alright, a lot of people pointed out that this is actually something lawyers sometimes do, but when you add it up with everything else, it's still kinda suspiciously convenient. That's the point I'm trying to make here. He seems very confident that he can win the case, but right before he goes to court, he slips on some water and says SpongeBob will have to be Mr. Krabs' lawyer now.
Oh, this is gonna be a slam dunk.
Oh, no! Mr. Krabs' lawyer, speak to me!
Wrapped with pain, can't move. Looks like you're gonna have to handle this one, son.
He tells SpongeBob that he has to represent Mr. Krabs, even though he himself called SpongeBob a liability.
Actually, SpongeBob, we won't be needing any testimony from you. Why, you'd be more of a liability than an asset.
But it's okay, because apparently all SpongeBob needs to win is inside of Richard's briefcase.
Everything you need to win is in this here case.
Really? Everything?
Except when SpongeBob gets to court, he realizes that Richard never gave him the combination to the case.
It's, all in here.
Really?
Yep, right in here.
Is there a problem?
Your lawyer didn't give me the combination.
Either Richard A. Bottomfeeder is the worst lawyer in history, or this is all part of his elaborate plan to ruin Mrs. Puff's life. Here's what I think happened. First, he finds out that Mr. Krabs is being sued, and he wants to ensure that Mr. Krabs loses the case because he wants to destroy any chance Mrs. Puff has at finding love. So he pretends to be a lawyer, even offering his services for free, something Mr. Krabs can't resist. He makes Mr. Krabs feel confident that they're gonna win the case, and then at the last second, he pretends to get into an accident so he can't represent Mr. Krabs. Instead of finding a real lawyer to replace him, he tells the most incompetent person for the job, SpongeBob, that he has to be Mr. Krabs' lawyer, and he gives him a case that allegedly has all the answers in it without actually giving SpongeBob the combination, setting him up for a total failure in court. Richard
There's a Krabby Patty.
without actually giving SpongeBob the combination, setting him up for a
There's a Krabby Patty inside Richard's case that SpongeBob later used to win, but I don't think that was part of his plan. We see Richard and Mr. Krabs previously discussing their plan to beat Plankton, and Mr. Krabs is later surprised by the Krabby Patty and believes it's just Richard's lunch. If using the Krabby Patty to win was the plan all along, Mr. Krabs would have won.
total failure in court. Richard A. Bottomfeeder refuses to let anyone get close to Mrs. Puff, not Dorsal Dan, and not Mr. Krabs. This guy has squillion levels of hate for Mrs. Puff. But why? What exactly did her previous student do that warrants this much torture? It can't be something as simple as him or his property getting damaged. It has to be something life-changing. Something like losing a loved one because of the student's reckless driving. And I think the show gives us one last hint about who this might have been. All the pictures of Mrs. Puff's house are very meaningful to her. She's got photos of Mr. Krabs, her pet snail, and of course those infinitely looping photos that told us so much about her mental state. But there is one more photo in this house that might be the key to this entire conspiracy. In season 12, episode
Who the hell is that guy?
14, Plankton's old chum, we see a photo of someone we've never seen before on Mrs. Puff's wall. There's some surprising similarities between this character and Richard. The green color, the red bow tie, the overall fancy, serious appearance. It clearly isn't the same person, but maybe this is someone related to Richard, like a father, a son, or a brother that Mrs. Puff's former student killed. And the reason she keeps a photo of him up is to have a permanent reminder to never make the same mistake of giving someone a license who doesn't deserve it. Mrs. Puff is a boating school teacher who once made a terrible mistake that led to the loss of her business, identity, sanity, and any chance at finding happiness. I like to think that there used to be a time when she was happy, back when her husband was still alive. If only he was still around today, maybe she wouldn't have to face all of this on her own. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Is what I would say if I was done, except her husband is still alive.
Wait, what?
things. In the SpongeBob movie, SpongeBob and Patrick travel to a gift shop named Shell City that's full of dead fish turned into knickknacks and ornaments. Except they end up setting off the smoke detector, which activates the sprinkler system and brings all the
That's Mr. Puff. Oh, that's Mr. Puff right there.
dead fish back to life, including a very familiar looking pufferfish hanging from the ceiling. Mr. Puff is alive. Well, wait a second. If he's alive and he escaped, then why hasn't he gone back to Mrs. Puff? Why is she still alone? Because remember, she ran away from their home in New Kelp City and started a new identity. So sadly, Mr. Puff has no way of finding her. The tragedy of Mrs. Puff's story is that her happiness is just a city away, but she can never even leave town because that would violate her parole. Richard A. Bottomfeeder probably even knows her husband is alive and is making sure they're never reunited. As the name says, Richard really is a bottom feeder.
Incredibly excited because we get to talk to the voice of Karen.
Is this the next theory, or is this the same theory?
Today, Jill Talley.
I love trying to make sense out of SpongeBob. My adorable nephew called me up and he just was like, hey, Jill, do you know about this? What do you make of this? Like, what do you think about this Mrs. Puff? And I didn't know what he was talking about. It was like a fever dream because I wasn't aware of all the conspiracy stuff. So all I'm hearing on the phone is criminal, past clues. And I'm going, what is he talking about? I said, I'm going to look into it, Frankie. So then I went online and I started looking at it and it was fascinating. I was I was going, I want to know too.
Wow, look at Alex Bale go. He's on the damn voice actors are watching his theories.
So, the Mrs. Puff theory. I guess maybe...
Does that actually have 20 mil? The original?
Maybe a few people might have watched this one. Yeah, so this is the one that really took off and...
The theory that began the Muse ARG.
Might have watched this one. Yeah, so this...
By this point, I had planned the whole getting trapped as the SpongeBob guy arc and had a rough idea of where I wanted to go with the story. Luckily, the theories continued to get views, but if they suddenly stopped, I had planned on incorporating that into the story. Okay, this guy was thinking ahead.
This is the one that really took off, and for good reason. It's really the one theory where the creators just straight up unambiguously hand us the lore. You know, as opposed to the usual vague details and Easter eggs that may or may not be hinting at something. But how does it hold up now? Well, you might be surprised to hear that I'd probably only put it in 4th place. I think the first 2/3 are really strong, and it could have been one of...
Thought he was gonna put top 3. Wait, fourth's not bad.
My best theories, but then I kind of go on this weird tangent in the 3rd part with this random background warden character with a bunch of assumptions and a kind of weak final connection to this vaguely similar picture. I think I just really wanted to give this theory more of a sense of closure and a final big twist, but that ultimately made it feel kind of forced in the end. But I have since ended up coming up with so many new ideas and discoveries for this theory that I decided to just make the next mini theory just a straight up Mrs. Puff Part 2. So if we pretend like this new stuff was always part of the theory, I think I'll bump it up to 2nd place where it rightfully...
Damn! Okay, so we're getting some crazy DLC content.
belongs. So without further ado, here is the Mrs. Puff theory Part 2.
Alright, let's see what did you cook up?
So, there's been a lot of new evidence that's come out about Mrs. Puff since I posted my theory. Some I already added to the main theory, like her real name being discovered, so go watch that if you haven't already. But I saved some really cool discoveries and new ideas just for this mini theory. Like, in Lighthouse Louie, I missed this the first time, but if you look closely in her pile of junk, you can actually see a dead police officer's corpse! Oh my god! Ah! Ah! Actually, no, this is just an obstacle from her training course. But I bet you didn't know, in Camp Coral, we see her dispose of the real
What the What is this show?
Mrs. Puff's dead body! Also no, this is just a piñata that looks like her. Okay, but they're clearly trying to mess with us at this point. Before I get into the actual new discoveries, I want to talk about some alternative ideas I've come up with for some parts of the Mrs. Puff theory. As I've already said, I'm not the biggest fan of where I took the third part of this theory. I really wanted there to be this big reveal about why the prison is forcing Mrs. Puff to teach SpongeBob, when in reality, it just makes so much more sense that, like in Doing Time, every time Mrs. Puff sees SpongeBob in jail, she's actually just hallucinating.
Good day, class.
I must be having a nightmare.
You know, there's just way more direct evidence in the show to support this, as opposed to this convoluted warden theory. And it's further supported by my new imagination mini theory from earlier in this video. We know the show exists in a world where things you imagine can easily come to life. And Mrs. Puff is constantly imagining her fear of SpongeBob or the guilt from her past mistakes. So it makes sense that she would get trapped in her own delusions so often. But there's always been this big loose end in my theory that I've always wanted to find a way to wrap up. We know Mrs. Puff prematurely gave a license to one of her previous students in New Kelp City, and that led to the city being destroyed.
Local consensus places the blame on this negligent, selfish driving instructor.
But who was Mrs. Puff's original student before SpongeBob? And while we haven't gotten any new evidence about this, I think I've got two strong candidates for who it.
Is that his dad? That's his dad, right? The first one? The first one is his dad, and then I don't know who the second person is.
Could be. One of the best comments I got from the Mrs. Puff video was the idea
cousin.
that the original student was actually SpongeBob's cousin, Stanley S. Squarepants.
Hi, Squidward. I'd like you to meet my cousin Stanley. We're related.
There's two of them!
Stanley is a character we meet for only one episode in Season 5. He's SpongeBob's cousin from out of town, and he's extremely accident-prone, even more than SpongeBob. Now, we don't know what town he's from, but we know his Uncle Sherm sent him away because he was too destructive. So he totally fits the idea of Mrs. Puff's former student that probably destroyed New Kelp City. It would also add another layer to why Mrs. Puff is so tortured by SpongeBob specifically. He would literally look and act exactly like her former student.
There's two of them!
So yeah, I think this is totally plausible. Great comment. The only thing that kind of holds this theory back is the lack of any actual concrete connection between Stanley and Mrs. Puff. Like, unfortunately, they're never in the same episode. But I think I have another possible candidate for this mystery student. Someone
Who is this guy?
who we actually see interact with Mrs. Puff. In the Mrs. Puff theory, I theorize that the
Oh, he literally showed the guy, that other prisoner, in the episode where she's hallucinating, and then she's like flying downwards in the boat, and then there's like that other prison inmate. I think that's him. I think he's the original person that made her go insane.
The entire episode Doing Time was all imagined by Mrs. Puff, and everything we see, even small details like her changing prison uniforms, are symbolic for what's really going on inside of her head. But if that's true, then what does this random other prisoner that keeps showing up symbolize?
Hey there, Puff Mama. What's today's grub?
Hi, Donna. It's chilly.
I wouldn't have thought much about it if it wasn't for this very interesting moment where she returns at the end of the episode.
Oh, it's just my imagination again.
So what's for dinner tonight, Puff Mama? Chili?
I think this could be implying that Donna is Mrs. Puff's original student. We see her driving Mrs. Puff's boat in a free-fall crash, just like her old student probably also did. And then she literally gets replaced by SpongeBob.
So what's for dinner tonight, Puff Mama? Chili?
Forget it.
Just like how we actually replaced her original student. So yeah, I think both Donna and Stanley are pretty good candidates for the original student. Stanley is a bit more thematically fitting, but Donna actually has some direct evidence in the show. So yeah, I could see it being either of them. But that's all just tying up loose ends. The real reason I decided to cover Mrs. Puff again in this mini-theory is because of two major new developments in recent SpongeBob episodes. The first is in the season 13 episode, Arbor Day Disarray. In this episode, Sandy gives everyone trees she grew, and we get this scene between Mrs. Puff and her tree.
I love talking to someone who knows how to keep a secret. I can finally tell someone what really happened when I pulled that job in Shell City.
Oh, what job? What job are we talking about?
What really happened when I pulled that job in Shell City? They're still adding more mysteries to solve about Mrs. Puff. It sounds like Mrs. Puff did some kind of heist or maybe has some connection to Shell City from the SpongeBob movie. And if you remember, I theorized that Shell City was the place Mr. Puff, her former dead husband, was being held. They end up setting off the smoke detector, which activates the sprinkler system and brings all the dead fish back to life, including a very familiar looking pufferfish hanging from the ceiling. Mr. Puff is alive. So, is it possible this job is somehow related to Mr. Puff? Well, before we get into that, there is one more new
She's the one who saved her own husband?
development we need to talk about. In the season 14 episode, Hysterical History, for the very first time ever, we actually do get to definitively see Mr. Puff when he was alive.
Bikini Bottom's own titan of industry, Mr. Puff, ran the first successful boat assembly line.
So, this episode is just a bunch of flashbacks from Bikini Bottom's history, and we learn that Mr. Puff was actually a wealthy businessman who ran a boat factory. And Sandy later confirms that this is all actually true. This isn't just a story SpongeBob made up. Now, Mr. Puff looks and sounds a lot like Mrs. Puff.
Speed up, line number 5!
And the other flashbacks in this episode seem to be about ancestors of our main characters, so maybe this is actually supposed to be just a relative of Mrs. Puff, not her dead husband. But remember, Mrs. Puff is not originally from Bikini Bottom, and we know her last name isn't really Puff, it's Blowfish. So this is most likely her former husband, Mr. Puff, before he died. And unfortunately, this does seem to disprove my Mr. Puff theory, because he clearly looks very different than the pufferfish we see in Shell City. But even if this pufferfish wasn't Mr. Puff, I don't think I was wrong about Mr. Puff being at Shell City. The fact that he's shown as a dried up, hanging pufferfish with googly eyes is way too similar to be a coincidence. And then there's the fact that they just confirmed Mrs. Puff has some sort of history with Shell City specifically. I think Mr. Puff was abducted and taken to Shell City, but the reason why we don't see him in the SpongeBob movie is probably because he was already sold to someone else by that point. In the SpongeBob movie is probably because he was already.
We never see this hand or background at Shell City. He's probably at the home of whoever bought him. Okay, that's true.
Already sold to someone else by that point, meaning he was unfortunately never saved by SpongeBob. So that leaves us with one final question. What was the job Mrs. Puff pulled at Shell City, and what does it have to do with her husband's death? Well, my first guess is that this job was some sort of rescue mission to save Mr. Puff from Shell City and she failed. But listen to how she talks about it.
I can finally tell someone what really happened when I pulled that job in Shell City.
Whatever happened at Shell City, she's happy about it. In fact, it's kind of a sinister, nefarious happiness.
She killed her own husband?
What really happened when I pulled that job?
She's not devastated that her husband was lost forever, she's happy about it. I never really considered this before, but could Mrs. Puff actually be responsible for her husband's death? Did Mrs. Puff kill her husband? I mean, we know Plankton sold Neptune's crown to Shell City.
I just wanted to say thanks again for selling me the crown. I sold it to a guy in Shell City.
So it does seem possible to arrange for this kind of thing to happen. And Arbor Day Disarray ends with Mrs. Puff's tree ratting her out to the police.
Hello, police department? I got a lead on that Shell City job.
I gotta go.
Why would the Bikini Bottom police care about something she did at a human gift shop? I mean, they didn't care when SpongeBob stole from there. The only explanation is that she wasn't stealing from humans, she was giving them something, or someone, from Bikini Bottom, Mr. Puff. Mrs. Puff arranged for fishermen to kidnap and kill her husband. That's what
She set up a hit on her own husband. She hired hitman on her own husband.
really happened at Shell City. But why? Well, other than Mr. Puff kind of seeming like a jerk who mistreats his employees, he's also very wealthy, which means that when he died, in a way that can't be traced back to Mrs. Puff, as
she was gonna get all the inheritance.
His wife, she would inherit his money, which explains how Mrs. Puff, who previously had to abandon her entire life and start over from scratch in Bikini Bottom, could afford to open a massive boating school. Maybe this was her plan all along, get close to some rich jerk, marry him, and then have him killed to inherit his money. These little breadcrumbs they've given us have told us so much more about Mrs. Puff's past, but also, maybe, just maybe, her future as well. Mr. Puff was portrayed as a greedy, unethical capitalist who only cared about money, even at the expense of his employees. And does that remind you of anyone else?
Mr. Krabs.
In Mrs. Puff's life?
Unhand that penny or the arm comes off! Keep on trucking, SpongeBob!
How could you trade SpongeBob for 62 cents?
You think I could have gotten more?
If she did it to Mr. Puff, who's to say she's not planning to do it again to Mr. Krabs? Maybe this is the entire reason why she's dating him. Let's just hope Mr. Krabs isn't planning on getting married anytime soon. The imaginary doppelganger Mr. Krabs, that is. And that is the Mrs. Puff Theory, Part 2.
Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And this next one is gonna be even crazier. Evolution theory. Not ready for that one. Well, that was the Mrs. Puff's theory. I can't even look at the comments because it's not the original video. I'm shook. It's not even like shook. I'm not even like, I'm still impressed, but I'm not like surprised because this guy literally does his research, finds all the clues, and bam, conspiracy theory. That's what I'm not even like surprised. I'm like, this is just another video where he just tells me what I want to believe, and I believe it. like every theory he's made, I believe, bro. Like that's what I believe now. Like the Blue's Clues, that's real, bro. That's real. SpongeBob, it makes sense. SpongeBob's such a huge show, has so many crazy stuff that happens that just goes over our head until someone like Alex comes in and he's like, nope. Y'all didn't pay attention to this part in this episode and this and this and this, and it all comes together. Conspiracy theory. I can't believe, yo, the Mrs. Puff one got 20 mil is crazy. And that was probably like 6 years ago. 6 years ago. That was like peak COVID time too, bro. Everyone was at home. And this man dropped the best theory ever. And everyone watched it. That's crazy. Right place at the right time. Mr. Alex Bale. Anyways, that was my reaction. I know I looked very sleepy. I'm pretty sure I almost fell asleep, but not because it was boring. I was genuinely tired. Long day. I know, I'm sorry. Next video, my mind will be awake. So with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Road 1K subs. And the 400 subs incentive. I will go live and we will react to this High School Musical theory. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.